And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, Game Source, and of course, the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe today to give us that latest little thing right there that you tingling on there. If you click on the bell, if you click on the subscribe, you get the latest notifications. And when we go live on the air with the latest Pop Culture Cosmos, PC Multiverse, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, State of Pro Wrestling, and more that we do right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the mastermind behind everything in the world of collectibles at, of course, happyhoardercollectibles.com. He's got free local delivery that he lists on his site and more. Plus also a lot of great stuff there. He will be updating it in the not too distant future, I imagine. It is, of course, my good friend, Happy Hoarder Collectibles, all over social media. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, Matt?
What is up? How you doing? It's been a couple weeks since we've sat down and chatted.
I know, my friend. It's been okay. Just wanted to go ahead and give you some time off. Obviously, spend some time with the family. Spend a good July 4th weekend. I know I had a good conversation on the State of Pro Wrestling with John Orlando, as we always do. But yeah, a lot of good stuff going down. Melinda and I had a great discussion on Friday. So yeah, definitely always great to catch up with you, especially since you texted me during the course of the week on something that kind of bothered you with your, I think over the course of the years, I would probably say is your favorite superhero character.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're going to be talking about that here in a minute. Plus also as well, we covered the July 4th weekend. I've got some different things I want to talk to you about, including, also, of course, facing the franchise with Beverly Hills Cop. I want to talk to you about some of my past experiences with Beverly Hills Cop and as we face the franchise, because it is the #1 movie in the world on Netflix right there for you with BHC4, but also the fall of Redbox and how dominant it once was and how our tastes and the way we consume entertainment, as you have pointed out first, ahead of everybody, has changed. The fall of Redbox, but also a weird trend on YouTube. I fell down the rabbit hole, Josh, and I think I might need you to help get me out. So we'll discuss that on the show as well. But first, my friend, it is July 4th weekend at the box office. Despicable Me 4, with the critics, it's never going to have a great rating. Let's just put it out there, okay? The critics just will not like pretty much anything Minion related out there for the most part. They never get reviewed great. But from an audience,
scolded in those reviews quite severely.
Yes, absolutely. But when you take the kids, your kids love the Minions. Your kids love Despicable Me's. We're now up to Despicable Me 4. If you include the Minions, that's 7 movies in now after all these years. And this sucker's still going strong, my friend, because they met expectations or slightly thereabove with $122 million domestically over the course of the 4th of holiday weekend, plus, of course, an extra $100 million and change overseas. This is starting off with about $250 million to start off with, already in the bank for Despicable Me. So not a bad deal if you can get it. I don't know if it'll be the $1 billion blockbuster the previous ones have grown up to be, but I still think this will do quite nicely and will still show everyone out there that the Despicable Me universe has a lot of legs left.
Oh, absolutely. And, summertime's a weird time for the box office too, because you can't predict, there's no pattern to summertime box office numbers. So Despicable Me could very well over the course of the next month and a half climb well into that 500 million mark. Because I mean, look at Inside Out 2, just made 1.2 billion dollars. It's crossed the $1 billion mark already. So you never know, man. It could happen. We could very well see Despicable Me climbing up next to our pal Dune Part 2 up there.
Yeah, I think that'll pass Dune Part 2 overall as far as worldwide, as much to our chagrin. Yeah, so it will pass Doom Part 2. I have a feeling that we'll have two. Oh, actually, again, later this year, you'll have, this month, actually, Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, there'll be at least 2, 3, 4 more movies passing Dune Part 2, much to my chagrin as well. Twisters is even projected to may do well during the course of the actual box office run as well. So we'll see, because Glenn Powell is the guy right now. Hitman is a big hit on Netflix. So Twisters is something we're going to be talking about here in a couple weeks, but just before Deadpool and Wolverine, that might be a big surprise as well.
Did you see all that stuff where they had to change the poster for Twisters because they had them running, but or sorry, not running. They were like looking up in awe at something, but the tornado was behind them. So the internet like lit them up for this. So they had to go and redo all the posters for the movie.
Whoops. Somebody didn't Photoshop very well there. It's amazing how that is, right?
Yeah. Didn't really do your due diligence there.
Exactly. But Despicable Me 4, as of now, is the king of the box office. Again, a little over $120 million earned over the 5-day period for the July 4th weekend. Inside Out 2, only down 48% against that comparable competition. That's something that actually Melinda and I wondered about, is when you have 2 animated features at the top. Now, mind you, they are different stories they are trying to tell. One is a little bit more highbrow for a kids or a family-oriented movie. One is a little bit more lowbrow. Mm-hmm. So they went different ways to try and reach the family audiences, but still, Inside Out 2, it doesn't look like even Despicable Me 4 is going to put a huge dent into its full growth. And I have a feeling that it might actually end up earning over $1.5 billion. It's already over 1.2 billion, my friend. It doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon.
No, definitely not. And like you said, that'll Minion madness, man. People will never tire of the Despicable Me franchise.
DJen, what's up, my friend? You got to get you back on the show whenever you can. It's great to hear from you, my friend. I'm glad you're doing well. All my best to you and the family. It is, of course, Josh the Great Peterson. Along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. We are talking the box office. Let me ask you this, though. Down 60%, which is kind of more the norm for a second week for a blockbuster. A Quiet Place Day 1 looks like it's going to start getting around $100 million domestically. It's, depending on how well they budget the film, looks like it could still make a nice little tidy profit. Your thoughts on A Quiet Place Day 1? Were you surprised at how well it's doing and the fact that it actually has maintained itself in this time of the year?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised. There's something about this franchise. They would not keep making them if they weren't seeing some sort of return on them, and there are not some sort of interest expressed in these films. And I think that after the last one, I don't think the returns were exactly what the first one was, but this has what's his name, Joseph Quinn, and the Napita Luongo, I think her name is, right? Yes. So I mean,
and Joseph Quinn, if you don't remember, he is from Stranger Things as Eddie. Yes, that's playing a completely different role.
So I think that I think that kind of is working in the film's favor, and the fact that it's kind of a, people like low budget horror films, and I think it's kind of falling into that category a little bit. So will they be able to make more beyond this? Who knows? But, for right now, good for them.
I think they will, man. The thing is, though, with these type of genres, they always want to start it sometimes they'll show you how it began, but they never want to finish it, and they end up overstaying its welcome. So that's what I worry about A Quiet Place, is
Yeah.
that they don't finish this off, find a cure, or wipe them out. Let's get the Marines in there with silencers and just blow them away, because he can't be loud. But not going to finish it. You're just going to try and continue to trying to grease the wheel until it gets overdone. That's what I'm worried about with A Quiet Place. I think that there could be one more, which is going to take place, A Quiet Place Part 3, whatever, which would put you back in whatever modern time frame that they have. But after that, I'm not sure if it has the length or the legs to go ahead and continue to go ahead and do before it really becomes like it's overstaying its welcome.
Well, if you notice, the Cloverfield suffered from that problem. So they were originally going to, like, the sequels to Cloverfield were originally belonged to other franchises. And like, oh, well, what if we turn this into the universe of Cloverfield? And that has created that pretty much disengaged audiences. Because I don't know if you actually watched the first Cloverfield, but it's an incredibly interesting film, right? Nobody had.
I did. Yeah.
People have done things like that, but nobody has really. I don't know. Nobody put it into play like that, I guess. But anyways, it was really great movie, and everyone saw the next Cloverfield. I forget what it's called, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be
Cloverfield Paradox." Yes,
Paradox. Yeah, and it really had nothing to do with the first film outside of sharing a name. So,
but they did something really smart at that time because Netflix was still growing. They put the trailer for it on the Super Bowl and said it was out now. And they put it out right as the Super Bowl ended. And I thought that was so smart of them to do it. Now, I actually got sucked into it and I watched it. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So
I figured it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know they're finally now going back and showing like what happened directly after the first film was made. From what I understand, there's another film in the works, but this is something A Quiet Place has done really well, is not followed in the footsteps of Cloverfield. And I think because of that, people are like, oh, I like those types of films, but this is, filling in the blank spaces for me that Cloverfield left.
Well, we'll see what happens with A Quiet Place day one as it continues to progress. It should find some type of profitability, which will obviously continue that series. Inside Out 2 is still finding great success at the box office, but Despicable Me 4, despite the fact Inside Out 2 is at the theaters, kind of making families have a decision on where to go this July 4th weekend, it still met its numbers with $122 million over the 4th of July holiday weekend. And of course, cashing in on the Despicable Me franchise yet again. We'll see what kind of legs the Despicable Me 4 has. We'll see right now. I mean, it did get an A cinema score, so families are enjoying it despite what the critics say. So we'll see what happens as Despicable Me 4 continues to go ahead and parade itself in theaters. We'll see how it matches up against Twisters, and then later this month, Deadpool and Wolverine. So we'll go ahead and watch that continuous battle. But please let us know your thoughts on the box office and what movies you caught during the July 4th holiday weekend by telling us at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Oh, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's show. You texted me during the week.
I did, yeah.
And it's always so funny because when I get a text from you, like,
something's up.
Something's up. So,
yeah.
Your all-time favorite superhero character, if people that are longtime listeners of the show, or even if you're a new listener to the show, is Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Mignola, who's responsible for greatly responsible for the development of the Hellboy character, put out a teaser trailer for I guess, is this a prequel, or I mean, because this takes place back in the 40s or the 50s?
During the Cold War, so that was what, the
60s,
60s,
yeah,
somewhere in there.
Okay. I saw the trailer for it, and it gave me weird vibes from it. We were talking just about horror movies just a second ago. This seemed like it was more horror oriented, a little bit more as far as lower scale or lesser scale, I should say, lower budget. But your thoughts? You said you didn't know what you think about Hellboy: The Crooked Man. What do you think about this return to Hellboy after what happened before previously in the Hellboy series?
So I don't know what I was expecting. You know, I had heard that Mike Mignola was getting very hands on with this next development. It's not directed by him, but I know he had a lot of influence on the writing of the script and all the I guess what do you call people who are just like an advisory position, you know, in
Yes.
the making of this film. Um, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I heard they're adapting The Crooked Man, which is not, you know, it's one of the stories that takes place like really early in the Hellboy timeline. It's not one of the first written, but it, you know, they jump around the timeline a lot in the comic books. So I was like, oh, that could be pretty cool. So The Crooked Man is, you know, is based on Appalachian myth. So it does, you know, story is very localized to American folklore. And then I saw the trailer for this and I was like, oh, man, this feels like a very, very low budget horror film. And it's being made by Millennium, which is I mean, that's what they specialize in. They're low budget indie film producers. But they also produced Expendables. So I mean, you know, they have money to go bigger budget here. But here's my concern here. It's like, say this movie knocks it out of the park, right? And people love it. They're like, oh, and woo, Hellboy returns, or you know, whatever. You can't make like look at Hellboy. If you've ever read the comic books, it's something. If you're going to make a film out of it, it's got to be big because a lot of the creatures that he fights in the comic books are not low budget things. You know, the Crooked Man,
Supernatural. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The Crooked Man they can get away with, but this after this, where do they go from here? I don't, and I don't feel like Millennium is a company that can handle the likes of Hellboy, and that's what concerns me.
Yeah, I just again, it's regarding the scale because I think that's why you and I both liked and gravitated towards the Ron Perlman, uh,
Hmm.
you know, movies because the scale seemed to be right as far as the mysticism, the whole, obviously Ron Perlman's he was terrific in that
Oh my gosh,
character, but
yes, yeah,
then you had also as well, like you said, as far as his whether they were his cohorts or whether they were his enemies, they were built to scale as far as through special effects, practical effects, whatever, makeup, whatever. They were built to a scale that was very believable, that was
mhm,
very understandable in that Hellboy universe.
yeah,
It did go wrong in the last attempt at Hellboy with David Harbour. I mean, David Harbour, good actor, obviously has done a lot of great work. Stranger Things, again, mentioned, second dropping already on this show. But that story was terrible, and that movie
yes.
deserved to die. And I
He was
really
not.
thought Hellboy.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
he was not a bad Hellboy. The script was just so terrible.
Yes, absolutely. And just to me, I thought that movie, to be honest with you, Josh, I didn't want to say it to you, be nice to you because you're my longtime friend, but I really thought that movie, we'll be talking about movies here with Beverly Hills Cop, with that movies that put franchises out of their misery. And I really thought that movie put Hellboy off the map for good for the foreseeable future for movies, but apparently it didn't. Apparently found their way, but the problem
Yeah.
is Hellboy a lower budgeted movie? It doesn't frame itself to be that because it looks like you're not going to get much in the way of special effects. You're not going to get much in the way of practical effects. It's going to be more of a realistic horror movie, and I'm just not sure that Hellboy fits that motif.
No, no, and also, like, if you look at the actor, so the actor that plays Hellboy, the only other thing I've ever seen this guy in is The Strain. You remember that show on FX? So it was based on
Yes.
the books, ironically written by Guillermo del Toro, and forget what the other guy's name was, but that's the only other thing I've seen him in. And I watching this guy in the trailers, it makes me wonder, can he handle? Because he's very charismatic, and it makes me wonder, can he? This guy's kind of a no-name actor. Can he handle the chops of Hellboy? Because that's also a big thing. It's not just story, it's not just budget, but it's Hellboy himself. Like I said, Ron Perlman and David Harbour did great jobs holding the role of Hellboy and creating that persona, but this guy seems a lot more mellow, and that's not Hellboy to me. But I could be wrong.
Well, again, I have to trust your judgment on what is a good Hellboy, what makes a good Hellboy, because you have spent hours upon hours. You've read through the comics. You understand the whole dichotomy of what it is to be Hellboy. So I defer to your judgment on that. I have casually seen the Hellboy universe from afar. I remember fondly how well Ron Perlman killed it in that role. So again, that's the base. It's like when we talk about anime. I've gotten more into anime as of late, but remember my first conversations with you on anime is that I really can't get into anime because once you see Akira, there's just nothing else that's quite as good. But and that's the thing now. I have grown to appreciate more anime, so I'm more open-minded to it going forward. But when it comes to Hellboy, can you say I've seen the best Hellboy and there's really not going to be anyone that's going to come close to it?
I mean, who knows? Like I said, like this could come out and just knock our socks off, but we said the same thing with like Batman. Every time there's a new Batman, like, oh, that wasn't as good as the last one, or oh, this one could be great, but there's no guarantee that this character, whatever iteration, however many people enjoy it, is going to stay like this, because they want the version of it that's going to make the most money. And if this is not it, then we'll probably see them beat Hellboy to death again somewhere on down the line. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing to me what they did with the David Harbour. They really sold him short because he could have followed in that line of good Hellboys. In fact, I thought he wasn't a bad Hellboy at all. But again, that story and that movie was terrible. So I'm very curious to see where they're going to go with this, Josh. And it's again, if it meets your approval, it will go ahead and allow me to go ahead and get a chance to check it out as well. We have disagreed on a couple things, but 95% of the things that you agree upon, I agree upon, King Arthur aside. Hellboy is definitely one of them that we both agree upon.
Yeah, absolutely. And cool, bro. Hey, let me tell you, like, pick up the first volume of Hellboy. You can get it in like a trade paperback, I think on eBay or whatever for like $5. Pick it up, read it. You will not regret it. It's not what you think. All right. So give it a whirl.
And that's the thing with Hellboy, it isn't what you think. When Hellboy is done correctly, Guillermo del Toro, look who made the first film. I think that says it all. Guillermo del Toro is one of the premier auteurs in our business. As Xbox says, Xbox is in the chat right now. Hellboy 1, he remembers being fantastic. It is something that, again, it's very fun. I just wish it had gotten larger and more acclaim at the time. I wish it had been bigger. It was big enough that it earned a sequel, but not much more. It's one of those things like the studio almost felt like, okay, we're going to go ahead and put out the Golden Circle and kind of give it the same love, but not really. They didn't give it the same amount of love as they gave that first Hellboy, and I think it suffered for it. I think it's good, but I just don't think it matches up to the original.
You know what's crazy? So that movie came out before like the superhero movies got really big, and I don't feel like the world was ready for that version of Hellboy when it came out. I think that if the Guillermo cut came out today, that would be a whole different story.
But that's Guillermo's whole career, is like he'll make movies people just don't understand in that time frame that they're released.
Yeah, he's ahead of his time, and that's kind of been his Achilles heel.
That'll be on his tombstone, I think, when he passes away.
Yeah, and cool, bro. Yes, by Mike Mignola. Because it's funny because everyone likes to create these connected universes now, but Hellboy is like ripe for having these big connected universes, because you got Hellboy, Lobster Johnson, Witchfinder. There's the Goon. They even have like a version of Frankenstein, and they're like, there's a very cool like gothic monster universe that can be created, with the right production costs and the right actors and the right writers and directors and things like that. They just need to get there, and that's why I'm really scared that this Hellboy is not going to do great, because if this Hellboy is not great, it could very well vanish from any live action setting for the foreseeable future.
Well, it got literally no pub from many of the major media outlets upon that initial trailer release for Hellboy. I think most our audience and most audience out there don't even know Hellboy came out. The new Hellboy came out with a new trailer. So I'm going to put it out there. If you get a chance, check it out. Decide for yourself if it's something you're going to be interested in. Again, it's a Hellboy, the Crooked Man movie coming out in the not too distant future. I'm just going to say this. I'm going to give it a chance, Joe. I'm going to give it a chance, Josh, but I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to give it a chance, Josh, and see what's going to go and works out. But again, it seems more reliant on the horror side of things and the fantastical side of things. I really, really think, Josh, that's probably its best attribute.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like we said before, like assuming this one does well, like what happens next? Because do they have the budget to really flesh out this universe? I don't feel like Millennium does, because that's not what they do.
Very concerning, my friend. But if you have thoughts on Hellboy, the Crooked Man, we'd love to hear them. I think what is the expected date it's coming out, if I may ask? September 19th. September 19th.
Two theaters to answer your question. Xbox.
Yeah, two theaters. Absolutely. This is another one, Josh, I really think would be better suited maybe going straight to streaming. If it gets a massive success on streaming, that might make it more palpable for people to decide whether or not they want to get back into Hellboy.
Well, yes and no. If they're going to do the theater release, it needs to have a wide release, which is not something that Millennium really offers. So yeah, it's a really, they should have just gone and done a streaming series. I think that would have been a lot better for this one.
Would you consider this a reboot of the character or the reboot of the films?
Yes, I would, because this is not connected to Guillermo's or Harbor's. This is its own thing, brand new, and it's taking place so far back in the timeline that that's it. That's where the roots of this are.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I do have my concerns. I'm not sure exactly that this is the direction I would take Hellboy, but then again, maybe a studio, after what happened with the David Harbour movie, will not okay a high budgeted, or let's say even like an 80 to 120 million dollar budgeted Hellboy anymore, because they don't think they're going to get the return on the investment. Because I think that's really what it needs. Hellboy, because the fantastical elements that it has in it, I really think that's what it needs. But that's just me. That's just me.
Yeah.
But we'll find out.
Yeah. And like I said, with Mike Mignola, advising on the film, this is really our last chance for a great Hellboy film, and there are some things that are definitely concerning about it.
Well, Josh and I we'll go ahead and make sure we check it out before the year's up, hopefully, and we'll be able to give our thoughts on it and just say, don't let us down. But what are your thoughts on Hellboy, the Crooked Man? We'll see what happens. What are your thoughts on this new direction, on this rebooted Hellboy? Please let us know your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, 1/2 hour down, 1/2 hour to go here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. It is Josh the Great Peterson. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at Happy Hoarder Collectibles for your collectible needs at happyhoardercollectibles.com. Along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening to all the radio stations that play our show during the course of the week, whenever they play it. Want to thank you so much as always. Please like and subscribe to get the latest notifications on YouTube when we go live on the air with the latest Pop Culture Cosmos. Let me ask you this, Josh. I might need an intervention here because, there probably will be a thing coming up here in the not too distant future. I, as a YouTube streamer, also stream a lot of YouTube, and the addiction kicks in sometimes where you just sit there. I'm just going to go ahead and, while this download is cooking up here for the Lakers Fast Break or Pop Culture Cosmos, I'm just going to go ahead and check out a video or two or 5 or 28 or 52. And one of those things is, the algorithms, which I have still yet to figure out entirely. Yesterday, we were on, I guess, a lot of algorithms for the Lakers Fast Break, and we got a ton of audiences, a ton of people coming up to watch our show which was crazy, which is great, much appreciated. But let me ask you this, Josh. As I fell down the rabbit hole, one of the weird sensations that's out there are story recap channels. If you are familiar with that, Josh, story recap channels on YouTube. Now, there's a whole ton of channels that are devoted in 10 minutes or so, sometimes 20, to recapping the entire story of whatever movie is. Now, there are recap stories, channels that are, videos out there for popular movies that have taken place. A lot of them out there. But the success of a lot of these channels, Josh, are based on B movies, terrible sci-fi movies from all over. And the first thing that I've lived 55 on this years on this earth, Josh. I had no idea there was so much bad sci-fi that had been made over the course of the past 25 years, Josh. And unfortunately, all these story recap trailers that these channels that I watched through and all these videos, they describe them for me in detail. Thank God I didn't suffer through them and watch them all. But your thoughts, my friend, have you fallen down the rabbit hole for some of these YouTube algorithms from time to time? You're on mute.
Yes. So yeah, it's funny. We'll talk about certain topics on the show, and then my YouTube thing. I don't know if my phone is listening to me, but like log into YouTube, and all of a sudden it has all these different videos on the things that we've talked about. So I think the one of them I fell down the worst was like a Final Fantasy like connectivity theory playlist, and I just watched not several hours. I watched a couple hours of those videos, and same thing with there's some Marvel ones back in the day that I did fall down. So yes, I know YouTube is a very dangerous place when it comes to using your time wisely, because the time goes by pretty quick, and then you find out at the end of it all, like, that was not a very great use of my time.
Exactly. But yeah, these movie recap channels, there's like hundreds of them out there, and they find the most low budget, terrible movies that are out there. And I'll relate this to something a little bit later on here in regards to all these low budget, terrible movies that are out there. Most of them that they cover are usually some bad sci-fis, because they get you with the thumbnail that tells you about, like the earth is imminently going to be destroyed and it's the last man on earth, some type of weird storyline, or there's 1,000 zombies about to eat this dude, but he wants to have dinner first. And yeah, some stupid description like that will get me suckered in there. And so I go into these rabbit holes when you watch these films, and you wonder, how did these movies get made? I scream, Josh, scream to whoever's listening out there that a Mass Effect series or movie be made for years. Yet I see trashy sci-fi on a regular. You can instantly see trashy sci-fi through the decades on these story recap channels. It's amazing how much people, you just ask yourself, who financed this garbage? Who?
Right.
And it's so funny because every now and then you'll find them and you'll see them, and they'll always have like one or two notable stars who are simply there for a paycheck. They're for a paycheck. And thank God you don't have to hear them act, because again, it's just a story recap. But yeah, it's just so funny how YouTube is now just cornering the market on all these different types of videos. I mean, they've got a video for virtually everything that's out there, including us. Thank goodness. But your thoughts, my friend, on it, because man, there is so much bad sci-fi. That's what I've come to the conclusion in my time watching these channels.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad sci-fi out there, but I mean, I feel like with sci-fi, bad sci-fi paves the way for good sci-fi. Okay. Like, I don't think that we would have Star Wars, for example. Not that Star Wars is great right now, but like, I don't think George Lucas would have felt like he could have made the original Star Wars trilogy without being inspired by all the other junk sci-fi that was out there. You look at and then a lot of films were inspired by Star Wars. So it's yes, there are some terrible things out there, but again, I think that they paved the way for some really great things.
Yes, and it's just disappointing again to see that there's so much bad sci-fi. All that money could have been allocated to better projects somewhere else. But let me lead this into you, my friend, because one of the beneficiaries before these channels really started coming up, Josh, in great quantity was Redbox. If you remember, if you went to the local Walmarts or the local Smiths or local grocery stores, department store chains, at some point in time in the last decade or so, you probably walked by, especially if you're in the States, Redbox, which is a big red machine, looking like an ATM, but it would distribute movies selected out there. And you would go ahead and, rent it out, take it home, bring it back, just like GameFly was at one time very popular. So I ask you, Josh, Redbox has seen better days, and in fact, the parent company of Redbox, Chicken Soup for the Soul, is currently in the bankruptcy protection and talking about whether or not to sell off its remaining assets. I know the Kroger chains in dealing, especially here on the West Coast of the U.S., Smith stores around here, they're all closing down their Redbox. They all have like signs that you can't rent anymore. You're done. We're getting rid of these suckers. Redbox was a big beneficiary of these low budget. They would not be shown anywhere else in front of any audience type movies. Yet, for some reason, in the age of digital, they were just not able to go ahead and sustain itself. And unfortunately, like Blockbuster, like Hollywood Video, like so many of the things that us people our age or in our age groups knew was a regular thing, now Redbox can no longer be said it's a regular thing, and as it's going by the wayside in the not too distant future.
I have a couple thoughts on this. All right. I did notice that Redbox was going out of business when I went up. So we have Kroger's out here. We have stores called Brookshire's, and it's like they're like little grocery market chain. But they all have red boxes outside, and they have red boxes in there that give you the option to buy movies. So I would go into these and I just buy a butt ton of movies, and then I would print the DVD cases off the internet and make my own thing, because you do photo paper or whatever, and it saves you money because they're like $3 a movie instead of having to pay like the $20 to buy it new in the store. So I always loved Redbox for that purpose, and I have rented a few movies over the years, so that's it's been cool. I did not know they were owned by Chicken Soup for the Soul. I think it's a religious company, right?
That I'm not sure. I know it's an entertainment company of some type. I haven't looked for as far as concerned. I do know that they've filed for bankruptcy protection. That's
Gotcha. Okay. So my thought here is that we are actually we're in a prime spot for another big video rental chain to come out, because if you look at stuff that's streaming, right, you can no longer rent it several weeks after it hits digital. You have to wait 1 to 2 months now to rent these movies at like a $6 to $7 price tag. So if you were to go back and open up these Blockbusters again or whatever it might be, and open them up at because what was it? It was like $3 for a standard movie, $5 for a new release. Like, you could very well put a lot of these streaming companies back out of business. You just have to drive up to your local store instead of doing it from your couch. So I think that if people are able to save money, it would actually get them off the couch and back into a physical location. Am I crazy for thinking this?
No. You're not thinking crazy for thinking this, but with the rising costs, it's just the ancillary costs, leasing and, getting employees, all the other stuff that's involved. That's what's the killer for most businesses. I know you, as someone who contemplated opening up your own location, you're literally going to have to be there, around the clock, because all the costs involved. So, I mean, we deal with our good friend, Douglas Hoyabu. He owns Retro City Games. He has 2 locations, but we've talked about him and I on a personal basis around all the costs as far as leasing, as far as the logistics, security, employees, the whole 9 yards. after all that, it makes it sometimes really hard to find a profitable way through to grow your business.
Okay, let me tell you a story actually that happened this past week that I found out. So malls rip people off for retail locations, and it made me think about Doug when I was talking. So in the local mall here, there's a guy that runs a toy store called Action Jack's Toys. Really nice guy. Um, but he was in this mall. He's paying a premium of somewhere around like $4,000 a month to run this store, which is insane if you think about outside the mall. The average monthly cost on a retail space is anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500, right, for the same size that this guy's paying in the mall. But he's paying the extra because it's in the mall, right, and you get the alleged foot traffic. Anyways, this guy, he's what am I trying to say? There's another guy who owns an anime store, and he was offering to take over a lease for this other toy store. And he goes, I'll pay $4,100 a month. But then the mall looked at his finances and said, we will let you have that space for $6,000 a month. So it's no wonder that malls are dying, and people are instead, seeking to do online things online and all the other online and doing, shows and all types of things like that, doing Whatnot, eBay, because you're right, it makes you wonder, is it profitable to have a physical retail location? And if you do, you do have to spend your life working on it, much like our friends Doug and Nicole.
I will say this though, our good friends Doug and Nicole, they do a great job. So if you're in Las Vegas, as I always say on our radio show, please go visit our good friends at Retro City Games. They are the leaders in classic retro games here in Las Vegas. But they, as you know, Josh, they have to do a ton of volume. They bring in so many items in order to have to push out so many items. And they have so many different ways they have to do it, not only through the store, but they have to go to expos, they go through Whatnot. They, like you do, Josh, when you have to get in a whole bunch of inventory, you have to find more than one way these days in order to get it out the door.
Yeah. And I don't, and especially like attaining inventory, I can't just go to the the wholesale distributors, because there are things there that I can't get. So I have to go to other places like eBay and the conventions and things like that. So yeah, it is hard. So it's a what do you call it? Like a business of passion, I guess. It's a pursuit of passion is what I'm trying to say when you're doing stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, my friend, it's still great to always be talking about it. And again, if you guys are interested in the Las Vegas area, looking for a good place to go for classic retro games, Retro City Games, always give them a big shout out. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on the fall of Redbox, your thoughts on the, going through that downward spiral of bad sci-fi and bad movies out there. You tell us your thoughts on all of what's going on in the changing world that we have in regards to physical and digital media. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all these great subjects. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, I was going to end our show with a tribute to Beverly Hills Cop as far as facing the franchise, which I will still do, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. Xbox is in the chat, Josh, and I wanted to ask you this, Josh. Your thoughts on this in regards to Transformers, with Hasbro quoting this week that they want to get back their classic games on Xbox Games Pass. Your thoughts on that? And obviously as well, we've talked about before Call of Duty going on Xbox. How big of that could be? How big could that be for Xbox going forward? As far as I think Call of Duty, you start putting the whole line out there, Josh, and I really think you're going to hit a home run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's a demand for these games on the Xbox, that's something that they have done really well. And Phil Spencer has come out and said, like, hey, we are listening to what you guys want. And if that's something you want and the fans are loud about it, I definitely think that it is, doable for them. The cool thing about Transformers, though, is that Hasbro has recently said that they want to get out of the toy business and focus 100% on gaming. So that's why they're selling all their property.
What a shock.
I know, right? So that's why they're not selling, but they're like giving rights to Mattel and Playmates for a lot of stuff that made them a lot of money because they're trying to shift their focus over to gaming. So it is possible that they might end up doing remakes or remasters or whatnot, and we will end up seeing them on the Xbox and Switch and PlayStation. It definitely sounds within the realm of possibility.
Those Transformer games, Josh, the Cybertron game, those were some of the better games in the late Xbox 360 era. Were the Transformer games, and so those are something that you could be seeing on Games Pass, or be seeing like you said, a remaster of sometime soon.
Yeah, I feel like yes, those Transformer games at the end of the 360 era were amazing. And you have not, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't remember like any great I'm sorry, my kid's screaming in the background. I don't remember a lot of like great Transformer titles coming out on the Xbox One. So
No,
yeah,
it was the 360 games.
Yeah, and yes, Kurt, the Transformer toys with the metal were great. It's crazy because back then the cost of Transformers has gone up like significantly over the years. Like back when, back in the 90s, you could pay anywhere from $7 to $12 for like a decently sized Transformer 6-7 inch toy. Nowadays, though, if you want something like that, you're paying anywhere from $20 to $30, and the materials they use to make them are a lot cheaper and they break faster. So yeah, definitely a weird landscape we're in for toys. But yeah, Transformers is I definitely see a lot of possibilities, for the video game world of Transformers if they did it correctly.
Yeah, I do see a war and a fall of Cybertron both coming to Games Pass. I see those guys. I see both of them being remastered at some point, or maybe not, because the Xbox 360 emulator is part of Games Pass. I was just playing Gears of War 2 the other day off Games Pass, off the cloud, and it was a pretty good experience. Not the best or smoothest, but it was still a pretty good experience because it's based off my Wi-Fi. So I enjoyed it for what it was. So I can see Hasbro making a deal to get some of their older games back on the service and to refurbish new ones, and also get those properties made out into new games if they align themselves with the right developers. So we'll see. Kurt Affair says G.I. Joe and Transformers will be interesting if that movie happens. Yes, you're talking about the Chris Hemsworth led combo between G.I. Joe and Transformers when that finally comes out, as far as that hybrid movie that they're supposedly going to be in production for. So yeah, a lot of toys will be sold then. Absolutely, Kurt. I can't agree with you more on that. But Josh, again, Xbox Games Pass, their survival depends on how well it blows up with Call of Duty. One last time, I know that you talked about it before when it was originally announced that Call of Duty would be heading to Games Pass. How would you structure Call of Duty on Games Pass when it comes out? Or how would you be already leading the way to there with some back, episodes, some back games in the catalog being put out on Games Pass?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would definitely start with maybe the last 3 titles. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for people still playing these games, but yeah, I would definitely put the last 3 titles out there and maybe incentivize people through the Xbox game or reward program or whatever they have to get people to jump back into these games, and maybe create some sort of rewards for in-game content on the new Call of Duty for going back and playing some of these back catalog games. That would be where I would start. But what do I know?
Again, I think it's a smart move by Xbox to give it one last push for this Games Pass to succeed and hit, because this is the future of Xbox. If Xbox is to be able to be a sustainable entity, I think it has to be reliant on Games Pass, because as a console maker, obviously outside the run that they had with the Xbox 360, it hasn't gone entirely well as a developer or as a console maker. So much to my chagrin, because I have enjoyed my Xboxes over the course of the past decade plus, 2 decades plus. But we'll see what happens, my friend. But wanted to go ahead and get that in for you, Xbox, in regards to thoughts on the future of Xbox Games Pass when it relates to Hasbro putting out its products onto Games Pass, but also as well, of course, what's going on with Call of Duty. That'll be coming up. We'll talk more about it as the days get closer for Call of Duty, the latest iteration to be appearing on Games Pass. A big win for Games Pass. So we will go ahead and talk about Game Pass as it relates to Call of Duty here in the coming weeks and months. But let me hear your thoughts out there. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. But before we head on out, my friend, it is time to face the franchise. And Beverly Hills Cop 4, it's killing it, man, as it needed to be, because it's not the cheapest of movies. Netflix, again, like I was talking about Melinda, when they want to put out the cash, Josh, they put out the cash for some of these movies. And does it pay off? Not always, but they paid money for The Irishman. They paid money for The Gray Man, and they're paying some big money again to get this out the door, Beverly Hills Cop 4. I think it follows a formula. I had a chance to go ahead and sit down and watch it. It follows a very familiar formula. Doesn't stray away from that too much. The same screenwriter behind Bad Boys, Ride or Die, is involved with this too. It touches on the nostalgia, brings back some good old characters that you know and love, and doesn't get strayed too far away from the actual Eddie Murphy theme from the original. It took a lot from the original, and I think overall it's a decent watch. It's a decent watch, Josh.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I want to. I've been seeing a lot of the articles about it online, and they've been showing like the side-by-side shots of things that happen in the original versus how they happened in the new film. It's also like they took specific things and remade them for the sake of nostalgia, which is really cool. I know this movie's been in the works for a long time. They've been talking about this thing for a really long time. So do you think it was worth the wait?
For Netflix, it is, because it's the number one movie on the planet for them. But I guess so. But that's the thing. Okay, we talked about this before. Movies that put franchises out of their misery. I talked about Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2 at the time was so bad, it put out the Ghostbusters for decades. And Beverly Hills Cop 3, which I worked on, my company that I worked with, Pacific Data Images, worked on some wire removal. Just simple wire removal. He's Eddie Murphy, or whatever, the stuntman. Excuse me, is the stuntman who was portraying Eddie Murphy, was doing a scene. I think it was on as far as a wheel. As far as you're at a carnival, whatnot, and one of those type of wheels that's been around. He's doing some stunts on it, and we had to do some wire remove for simple things at that time. As far as just getting rid of the wire in the screen. So, but even then, we started the footage that they sent us, whatever small amounts of footage, we just could tell then, Josh, it was not going to work out. That the magic had kind of left. We were talking about that movie at that time, but should they really be making a Beverly Hills Cop 3? It was really not that good. And of course it came out, it floundered, it flopped, and it ruined the movie ruined the franchise for decades. It sapped all the goodwill from those first two movies, especially that first one, away from audiences. And in doing so, Josh, it takes time. So I think maybe could have come out 10 years sooner. This could have actually been a decent hit at the box office. I think actually Netflix made a mistake in not putting it out onto the screens. It could have come out at maybe like a early May release, or maybe an August release, and found its own audience on the screen.
That's kind of what people do, though. Like when they have movies that they're not sure are going to do well, they send them over to Netflix. I feel like it was a smart move for them to do that, because I don't think that, Beverly Hills Cop is a franchise that people are going to run out to the theaters to see, at least not in our current time. It's because it's been so long since it came out. Like, look at Die Hard suffered from that too. Like after Die Hard 2, like Die Hard 3 was not great, and Die Hard 4 was not great. Neither was the next Die Hard. Like, it was a franchise that was slowly failing, and I know that they're working on another Lethal Weapon too, so that
I like Die Hard with a Vengeance, though. Die Hard with a Vengeance is really good. It's almost as good as the original.
It was entertaining for sure, yes, but it's not. It's been so long since the original came out. Like, the people who are still going to the theaters don't know what a lot of these movies are, so it is really risky to put something that originated in the 80s and 90s out onto the big screen today. We saw that same thing happen with Blade Runner 2049.
We were going to have to touch on the Die Hard universe because I kind of slightly disagree with you on the earlier movies. I even like the airport movies, but the later ones, yeah, I don't think I have a defense for one. The most recent ones, yeah, I really don't have. I don't have a defense for the recent ones.
So, Die Hard 1 and 2, like I enjoyed. Die Hard 3 was a tough watch for me because it was such a huge departure from what the first two were. Maybe if it's been
Die Hard with a Vengeance, though, I really enjoy. It for me, it's guilty pleasure watching.
Is that the one with Timothy Olyphant, or is that the one with
no,
with his son?
That's the most recent one. Timothy Olyphant. That's the one with Jeremy Irons as the bad guy. He kept having migraines.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that was
Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that was a bad film.
Yeah, it's the one with Timothy Olyphant. Yeah, that was.
That had Kevin Smith in it too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it did. And it was pretty cringeworthy. But yeah, again, that's another day for a face in the franchise. We're gonna finish up Beverly Hills Cop right now. But yeah, Beverly Hills Cop I'm going to ask this question now because it's a huge, massive hit on Netflix. If it sustains itself and has a 2, 3, 4 week run near or at the top of Netflix, because Netflix fans, they just go and move on to something else pretty quickly. But if it sustains itself, do you see something else in the line of Beverly Hills Cop in the future?
I mean, definitely. If something is successful, never say never, because that's kind of how that industry works, right? If something's successful, we're going to keep doing it until people hate it. So I definitely see another one happening if it continues to be good. I wonder too, like I said, with the Lethal Weapon, I wonder if that they'll go that route as well.
Well, we'll find out how far this goes. But yeah, I think right now, based off the initial success of Beverly Hills Cop 4, that we're going to probably see at least one more iteration in this universe. But if you have any thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop, did you enjoy BHC 4 on Netflix? I thought it was okay. My overall opinion is, again, it follows a very similar formula. And I think that was probably for its best to reinitiate a crowd and also bring in a new audience to what the work that Eddie Murphy has done. Actually, Eddie Murphy's actually out there. Look for some of his dramatic roles because he's actually pretty good at his dramatic roles. But giving you a big shout out there for BHC4. Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, yeah, Kurt, they probably will. If again, it all depends on those second, third week numbers for Netflix, the number of hours watched and all that. And that'll probably dictate whether or not they want to put out another 150 million for BHC5, but we'll see. Josh, my friend, it's been a great episode. Got a chance to catch up with you on pop culture, which is always a blessed thing for me. Any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
No, it was a pretty jam-packed episode. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do. I would love to talk more about some of those other 80s, 90s franchises.
Yeah. Well, remember, Die Hard will be coming probably. Die Hard as the best Christmas movie of all time needs to come closer to Christmas when we face the franchise then.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Yes.
Xbox in Australia, wishing you all the best, my friend. Kurt Affair, DGen. Yes, even you too, Cobra, wherever you're at, my friend. Always great to have you here. Always great for you to watch. And then again, we're on radio all over the world and also right here, the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh, the great Peterson, with a happy hoarder, this is Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for watching, listening. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great